Good morning and welcome to Backyard and Beyond. This morning we have a guest, Wendy Madsen from Des Moines. Good morning to you, Wendy.
Morning. I'm glad to be here today.
Well, great. And Wendy, some people may sort of be acquainted with your story because of a newspaper article, but many other people are acquainted because they know your mom and dad, Wayne and Barb Madsen of Audubon, have lived there for a long, long time, been involved in a lot of different ways, been teachers. So lots of people know Wayne and Barb Madsen. The story we want to focus on is your dad, Wayne, who has been undergoing just lots of challenges. And Wendy, where I'd like to have you start is, as I understand, last fall, Wayne started to have some problems that he was trying to get checked out. So then what happened after that?
It kind of started like late fall, early winter. He was just tired and fatigued a lot, didn't have his normal amount of energy, and we kind of just attributed all of that to stress. He had started a new job. And then in the spring, he got a cold, and it just did not get better. And for him to be sick for so long, because it was like 3 weeks, that was unusual. I don't ever remember him being sick like that before. And he finally went to the hospital.
Finally gave up, huh? Checked in.
Yeah, and he'd been to the doctor a couple of different times, but they just kind of thought it was just a nasty cold that wouldn't go away. But he finally checked in to the hospital, and they found out that his blood levels were off, and he got sent to the hospital here in Des Moines, and that was when they discovered that he had leukemia.
And he was in a pretty sad state at that point, as I understand. I mean, he was at levels that were sort of unexpected in terms of his blood levels, of all the things they check in your blood. So it was it was a good thing he didn't wait any longer, and they found out when they did. So, I mean, that has to be, sort of devastating for the whole family to find this out. And the only good thing is that they finally did figure out what it was. So then, he had lots of treatments. He was in the hospital off and on for quite a long time.
Yep, he was in the hospital for 8 weeks, I think, that first time that he was out here in Des Moines. And then he went home for just about a week, and then he was back in the hospital for another week for more treatment. And then he was home for about a month, and then back in the hospital again for another chemo treatment. And then in July, he started going out to Omaha. His sister, Sherry, had been tested and was a match for a stem cell transplant. And so both Dad and Sherry were going out to Omaha and getting prepared for the stem cell transplant, and he had his stem cell transplant at the end of July.
Okay. Now, as I understand, we used to talk about bone marrow transplants that's if there was going to be a transplant related to especially cancer and some other things, it was a bone marrow transplant. Now you're talking about a stem cell transplant. This is relatively new?
Yeah, it has changed. People with blood and bone cancers or blood cancer that affected the bone marrow would have a bone marrow transplant. And what they do now is a stem cell transplant, and it's really quite an amazing process. I know when people think of stem cells, they think of, from fetuses or, something like that. And this is not the case with what Dad had. It was adult stem cells, and basically they were harvested from my Aunt Sherry. It was just kind of like she was giving blood. They drew blood out of one arm, and her blood went through this machine, kind of spun through this machine, and the machine took the stem cells out of the blood, and then her blood cells went back into her body. And the stem cells were saved then and transplanted into Dad. And the stem cells are smart enough when they go into another person's body, so like when they went into Dad, they knew that they needed to go into his bones and make new bone marrow and start making new blood. And they just, it was just like an IV for Dad, and it took about an hour, and for Dad to get the stem cells, and I think it took a couple of hours for Sherry to give the stem cells, and it really is a non-invasive process. The worst part of it is the donor, for about a week prior to donating the cells, gets some shots to help the body produce more stem cells, and those can cause some joint pain, but that's really about it.
But knowing it's going for a wonderful cause, and probably now I'm not. I need to ask you, I guess, what Sherry's take on this was the joint pain any worse than perhaps some pain she'd had in the past?
It was a little bit worse, but it wasn't horrible. You know, it was something that you can take some over-the-counter medicine for, and it helped. And you know, at the worst, I think they do say, you know, you can get a prescription painkiller if it gets that bad, and for some people it does.
Sure.
But Sherry, it wasn't really too bad for her, and you know, we were just so thankful to have a match in the family. And,
yes.
and it's just such. Until you're in that situation with your family, everyone always says that, you know, donating blood or donating, you know, marrow, or in this case stem cells, is the gift of life. And you hear that, but until you're really in this position, I mean, it truly was the gift of life. And it's, you know, going through it, you think how it must be so hard and how it inconveniences people, and it really isn't. The process is not that difficult. I think Sherry missed maybe a couple of days of work when she had to go out to the clinic to donate, and then like when she had to go for some appointments and stuff. But I mean, it really didn't disrupt her daily life, and it gave Dad, you know, the opportunity to live.
Yes, yes. And I talked to your dad maybe a week ago or so, and he sounded like the Wayne that I've known. You know, he was sounding really good. I do understand from information from you that it does take a while for the body to process all this stem cell, and that, you know, it isn't just like an overnight thing, that it does take a while, but it's doing its job.
Yeah, it took about 6 weeks, and during that time, he really struggled. He'd gone through a really nasty round of chemo just prior to having the stem cell treatment, and the side effects of that chemo lasted for quite a long time. But he is really bouncing back now and doing well. And we just found out last week he had a bone marrow test and some cytogenetic tests done, and he is 96.6% Sherry now.
Wow.
So that means that 96.6% of his new stem cells have changed over to Sherry's cells, and everything is looking really good. And he is ahead of schedule as far as where they would expect him to be in his healing process. He's about 30 days ahead of schedule. So.
Wonderful news.
Yeah, it is.
News to celebrate, exciting. For sure. Now, there's a couple of things that mostly you, Wendy, personally have been working on, and one of those, as I understand, is just giving blood, you know, because people do need blood given to them, and so you sort of promoted people, you know, when it's time to go give blood, you have the opportunity to do that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And then, is there a stem cell list now? I mean, with bone marrow, they always kept a list of people who are willing to do bone marrow. Is there now a list of people who are willing to do stem cell in order to find a match?
There is. There's a website, and it's called BeTheMatch.org, and it is really simple to sign up. You go online, and you read some information, and there's some questions that you answer and some basic information that you fill out. It takes maybe a total of 10 minutes to do all of that. And then they send you a little kit in the mail, and in the kit there are 4 long swabs, and you swab the inside of your cheek and your mouth, and you mail those back in, and then they do some basic typing from the cells that they get on the swabs, and then they put you on a national registry. So
amazing.
You know,
It's
yeah, it's
amazing.
very easy.
Yeah.
And yeah, and that way, you know, like if Sherry had not been a match for Dad, then we would have had to go to the National Registry to try and find a match. And so, yeah, it's really easy to sign up and to do that.
And if you're on the list, of course, that does not say that if they give you a call and say, you know, you're a match, that you have to do it. You still have a choice then.
You still have a choice, yes.
Okay, very good. So that's one of the sites people might want to go to. If people want more information, is there another good website that you would recommend about leukemia and related diseases?
Yeah, the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society has a website. It's lls.org, and you can find links to the Iowa chapter of the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society on their website. They have wonderful, wonderful information on their website where you can look up different types of leukemia, and it gives you symptoms and talks about treatment options. The Leukemia and Lymphoma Society has been huge in helping us through kind of this whole process. They provide educational materials and they provide access to support groups. And, you know, for a patient with leukemia or for their family members, it's just wonderful to have that kind of education. It lets us know what to expect and kind of helps us know what questions to ask. And it helps so much to have that guidance because you're so overwhelmed and you just don't know where to turn.
Well, Wendy, we want to thank you so much for at least getting us started with this information, and hope people who are interested will follow up with that. And best wishes to you and your family, especially your dad, but it's, you know, everybody's involved with this. So, yeah. So we want to thank you very much, Wendy Madsen, for visiting with us. And until next time, best wishes to all of you.